Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. Today we're going to be looking at something kind of interesting.
Oh,
Stealing like an artist.
okay.
Which I know sounds kind of contradictory when we think about creativity and originality.
Right.
But we're going to be diving into Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist.
Excellent book.
Yeah. And exploring this idea of how embracing influence can actually help you in your own creative process.
Yeah.
So, you're probably thinking, isn't creativity about being original?
Right.
That's what we're going to unpack today.
I love it.
So right out of the gate, Kleon hits us with this bold Picasso quote.
Oh, yeah.
Art is theft.
Mm-hmm.
He's not playing around.
Nope.
So he explains that, every idea is essentially a remix building on what came before it.
It's true.
And I love how he even brings in T.S. Eliot,
Yes.
who said, good poets don't just copy, they weld their theft into something new and distinct.
It's about transformation, isn't it? Taking those raw materials and forging them into something entirely your own.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important to clarify here.
Yeah.
This isn't about plagiarism.
No, not at all.
It's more about recognizing that genealogy of ideas.
Right. It's like acknowledging the family tree of your creative influences.
Yeah, like think of it as genetics.
Ooh, I like that.
You're a mix of your parents,
Yeah.
but you're also more than just their combined traits.
More than the sum of your parts.
Exactly.
You're a unique expression of that lineage.
That's a brilliant analogy.
Thanks.
It really highlights how we're all these walking mashups of our influences.
Right.
The books we read, the music, we listen to, the people we surround ourselves with.
It all gets woven into the fabric of who we are and how we create.
And, Kleon even brings up that economic theory.
Oh, yeah.
The one about your income being similar to your 5 closest friends.
Right.
And he applies it to ideas.
Oh, interesting.
He suggests that the people we hang out with actually shape our thinking.
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah,
Our environment has a profound impact on our thoughts and behaviors.
absolutely. So, this begs the question.
Okay.
If we're all products of our influences,
Yeah,
how do we choose those influences wisely?
that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about being selective, like an artist, curating their materials.
So quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Seek out the best, the most inspiring, the most thought-provoking. Those are the influences that will truly nourish your creative spirit.
Okay, so all this makes sense, but I think anyone hearing this might be thinking, am I just going to become a copycat?
Right.
Like,
How do
yeah.
we avoid just replicating what we admire?
Exactly.
That's a great question. And Kleon tackles it head on.
Okay, good.
He makes this really important distinction between copying and emulating.
Okay.
Copying is like reverse engineering.
Mm.
It's taking something apart to understand how it works.
Okay, so like learning the alphabet.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
practicing scales on a piano.
Right.
It's about understanding the fundamental building blocks. But emulation is different.
How so?
It's taking those lessons and using them to create something personal.
Okay.
It's where you evolve those influences into something uniquely you.
I love how he uses Kobe Bryant as an example.
Oh, yeah. Great example.
Kobe studied his basketball heroes religiously, but he had to adapt those moves to his own body and style.
And it's in that adaptation,
Right.
that failure to perfectly copy, that we discover our own voice.
That's interesting.
It's in those imperfections,
Yeah.
in those unique expressions of our influences, that true originality emerges.
Kleon also talks about writing a Jurassic Park sequel as a kid,
Oh, that's great.
which made me realize, haven't we all done that?
Absolutely. We get so drawn into those worlds that we want more, want to explore those what ifs.
It's that impulse to create, isn't it?
Exactly. And Kleon argues that this is something to embrace, not dismiss.
So instead of write what you...
He suggests writing what you love.
It's like he's advocating for a world full of high-quality fan fiction.
In a way, yes. But it's more than just fan fiction. It's about tapping into that pure passion, that excitement that drives us to create.
It's about channeling those influences into something new and exciting.
Precisely. And he even shares the story of Bradford Cox from the band Deer Hunter.
Okay.
Cox used to record these fake albums, imagining what his favorite bands would sound like if he was writing the songs.
Wow.
And guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Many of those ended up becoming actual Deer Hunter songs.
That's incredible. So it's like, instead of forcing originality,
Yeah.
we should tap into what already inspires us.
Exactly.
Those worlds we're already passionate about.
That's where the seeds of our unique creative journey can be found.
This is fantastic.
Hi.
But we all know that just thinking about creating isn't enough.
True.
We have to actually,
We
create.
get our hands dirty.
Exactly. And Kleon is all about getting your hands dirty,
Yes.
about stepping away from the screen and getting physical with your materials.
He even quotes Linda Berry, who said, "Don't forget to use your digits."
Oh, I love that. It's such a good reminder that our hands are the original digital devices.
Right.
And as much as computers are incredibly useful,
Of course.
Cleon argues that they can sometimes rob us of the feeling of truly making something.
It becomes all about clicking and typing instead of experiencing that tactile joy of the creative process.
He even talks about how in college, creative writing workshops being forced to type everything in a specific font sucked the joy out of writing for him.
I can relate to that feeling of disconnect.
Yeah.
It's as if the screen becomes this barrier between us and our ideas.
And it wasn't until he started using analog tools again,
Really?
like the newspaper and marker for his newspaper blackout poems,
Oh, right.
that he rediscovered that sense of play and experimentation.
There's something about engaging different senses, feeling the texture and weight of physical objects that sparks the mind in a different way.
Research even shows that our physical engagement directly influences our creative thinking.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and Cleon even describes how he sequenced his entire book by printing out the pages and physically rearranging them on the floor.
It's like he's advocating for an analog to digital loop,
Yeah.
recognizing that computers are great for editing and publishing,
Right.
but that initial spark often happens best when we involve our bodies in the process.
So it's about creating workspaces that are like laboratories
Ooh, I like that.
with dedicated areas for both digital and analog exploration.
Yes, a space for both the mind and the body to create.
Now, I know a lot of our listeners are probably juggling multiple passions and interests.
Oh, absolutely.
I know I am.
Me too.
And Cleon has some really insightful advice for those of us who feel like we have too many ideas bouncing around in our heads.
Okay, this should be good.
He draws on the wisdom of playwright Stephen Tomlinson,
All right.
who encourages us to let our passions talk to each other.
Interesting.
Instead of compartmentalizing or prioritizing, allow those interests to intersect and inform each other.
Don't cut any of them off.
Right. Or you might experience a kind of phantom limb pain, creatively speaking.
I love that analogy.
That resonates with me so much.
Yeah.
I spent years focused solely on writing, almost forgetting my love for music.
Oh, wow.
And it felt like a part of me was missing.
Like something was out of balance.
Exactly. And it wasn't until I started playing music again that I felt whole.
That makes sense.
And the amazing thing is,
Right.
it didn't distract from my writing at all.
Yeah.
It actually brought new energy and ideas into it.
That's the magic of a multi-passionate life.
It is.
It's not about spreading yourself thin.
Right.
It's about allowing your different interests to enrich and inspire each other.
And Cleon also talks about the importance of hobbies.
Yes.
Those creative pursuits we do purely for the love of it,
pure joy.
without any pressure to make money or achieve success.
It's about finding those activities that bring you joy just for the sake of doing them.
no strings attached.
Exactly. Hobbies are like this hidden wellspring of creative energy.
I love that.
They remind us of the pure joy of making things simply for the sake of making them.
So we've covered how stealing like an artist involves curating influences, emulating our heroes,
Yes.
getting our hands dirty, and embracing our diverse passions.
It's all connected.
But what about sharing our work with the world?
Ah, yes, the big reveal.
Putting yourself out there can be terrifying.
For sure.
What does Cleon have to say about that?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. He actually has a lot to say about that fear. It's something that holds so many people back,
Oh, for sure.
from really sharing their work with the world.
You can feel so vulnerable.
Yeah. And this is where I think Cleon's approach really shines,
Okay.
because he acknowledges that fear, but he also offers some really practical advice for overcoming it.
That's good. I need that.
Don't we all?
Mm.
One of the first things he emphasizes is the importance of, just starting.
Just start.
Yeah, he quotes Steve Jobs, who famously said, "You can only connect the dots looking backward."
Oh, I love that quote. It's so powerful. And it applies perfectly to the creative process. We often get bogged down trying to map out every step, trying to have this perfect plan.
Yeah, like we need to see the whole picture before we even take the first step.
Right. But Cleon argues that's not how creativity works. It's more about trusting the process, taking those first steps, even if you don't know exactly where they'll lead.
So it's about embracing the unknown.
Exactly. And Cleon even breaks it down into this simple two-step process.
Okay, I'm listening.
Someone, do good work.
Seems obvious enough.
It is,
Huh?
but it's also the hardest part. It requires dedication, skill, and a lot of hard work.
No shortcuts.
Nope. And then step 2, share it on the internet.
Okay, so that's where it gets scary for a lot of people.
It can be. But Kleon demystifies the internet in a way.
How so?
He frames it not as this scary place of judgment, but as a platform for connection. It's about sharing your wonder with the world, inviting others in, being generous with your creativity.
I like that. It's like Bob Ross.
Yes. Happy little accidents, happy little internet connections. So it's not about self-promotion.
No, it's about sharing something you've created with the world. It's about finding your audience, connecting with people who resonate with your work.
And building a community around that shared passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kleon emphasizes the importance of being kind.
Especially online.
Yeah, because word gets around. And you want to be known not just for your talent, but also for your generosity and kindness.
It's about building relationships, not burning bridges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even has this funny anecdote about someone complaining about online negativity. And his response was, quit picking fights on Twitter and go make something.
Oh, I love that.
Right. It's a great reminder that our energy is better spent creating than arguing.
So share your work, be kind. What else?
Kleon also encourages us to seek out those who are better than us.
So it's not about being the biggest fish in the pond.
Nope. He says if you're the most talented person in the room, find another room.
Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow.
Exactly. Because we learn and evolve through those interactions with people who inspire us, who push us to be better.
You know, when we talk about building a creative life, it's easy to fall into that romanticized image of the tortured artist.
Oh, yeah.
You know, burning the candle at both ends, fueled by late nights and maybe a little too much liquid inspiration.
The whole live fast, die young myth.
Exactly. And thankfully, Kleon takes a different approach.
Yeah.
He advocates for a much more sustainable way of creating. He emphasizes healthy habits for the long haul.
So it's less about a frantic sprint and more about pacing yourself for a marathon.
Right, where the finish line might not even exist.
I like that analogy. It's about acknowledging that creativity is a lifelong journey, not a destination.
And that requires taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and yes, even financially.
All of it. It's all connected.
It's interesting because Kleon gets pretty practical here. He talks about money management, the pros and cons of day jobs, the importance of routine.
It's a far cry from that starving artist cliche.
It really is. And it's refreshing.
Right.
Because he debunks this idea that creativity has to be fueled by struggle and deprivation.
Yeah. He even points out that having a day job can actually provide structure and freedom.
How so?
Well, ideally, a day job provides a steady income, which takes the pressure off of needing to monetize your creative work right away.
Okay.
He quotes photographer Bill Cunningham, who famously said, "If you don't take money, they can't tell you what to do."
That's brilliant. It really highlights the importance of staying in control of your creative choices.
Exactly. And it's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where you can pursue your passions without compromising your financial stability.
But I think a lot of people struggle with that idea of juggling a day job and their creative passions,
Yeah, it can feel like living a double life.
constantly switching gears between two different worlds.
Kleon addresses that too.
Yeah.
He talks about finding a day job that, even if it's not your dream gig,
Yeah.
at least pays the bills, doesn't completely drain you, and allows you to create in your free time.
Easier said than done, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the luxury of choosing a day job that perfectly aligns with their passions.
Mm.
But even within those limitations, Kleon emphasizes the importance of creating a routine that includes dedicated time for your creative work.
So carve out that time, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
He even quotes the poet Philip Larkin, who talked about being utterly schizoid about it all. Yeah, Larkin's point was that you use each side of your life, the day job self and the creative self, as a refuge from the other.
I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that feeling of compartmentalizing.
It's a common experience.
Huh.
But what Kleon is highlighting is the importance of setting boundaries and making space for both sides of your life to thrive.
So routine is key, even if it means squeezing in creative time during lunch breaks or late at night.
Absolutely. Kleon is a big believer in routine. He suggests a simple but effective strategy using a wall calendar.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Every day that you complete your designated creative task, mark a big X on the calendar.
Okay.
As those X's add up, you create a visual chain of accomplishment.
It's like turning the whole process into a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even quotes Jerry Seinfeld, who famously uses this method for his joke writing.
Really?
Yeah. The idea is to avoid breaking the chain, to maintain that momentum day after day.
I love that. Such a simple yet powerful idea.
Right, and it works because it creates this visual reminder of your progress, which can be really motivating.
It's like you're building this tangible record of your commitment to your craft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he also recommends keeping a logbook.
A logbook.
Yeah, not necessarily a detailed diary, but a simple record of what you accomplish each day.
Kind of like a ship's captain logging the day's journey.
Precisely. It's a way to track your progress. Remind yourself how far you've come and notice patterns in your creative habits.
It's all about building systems and structures that support a sustainable creative life.
Yes. And it also involves surrounding yourself with the right people.
Your tribe.
Exactly. He talks about finding a partner and a community who support and encourage your creative journey.
He even says choosing who you marry is the most important decision you'll ever make.
Yeah. And he expands that marry well idea beyond just a romantic partner.
To
To the people you do business with, the friends you surround yourself with.
the people you spend your time with.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's really underlining the importance of having people in your life who understand and champion your creative pursuits.
Because let's be real, creating anything worthwhile takes time, energy, and a lot of emotional resilience.
It does.
Mhm.
And it's so crucial to have that support system
Yeah.
to lift you up during those inevitable moments of self-doubt.
And speaking of dealing with both praise and criticism,
Ooh, yeah, that comes with the territory.
which inevitably come with sharing your work.
Kleon has a great tip for that.
Okay, what is it?
He suggests creating a praise file.
A praise file.
Yeah, a folder where you save encouraging emails, notes, or reviews.
So like a little treasure chest of positivity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to dwell in past glory, but to have a reserve of positivity to tap into during those tough times when you're feeling discouraged.
Oh, I love that. It's like a first aid kit for your creative spirit.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds you that your work matters, that it has touched people even when you're struggling to believe it.
That's so important, especially for anyone brave enough to put their creativity out into the world.
Absolutely.
So we're taking care of ourselves, establishing routines, building our tribe, and celebrating those wins along the way.
It's all part of the journey.
But with so much information out there,
Oh, yeah.
so many options and distractions, how do we stay focused?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
How do we avoid getting lost in the noise?
That's where Cleon's next point comes in.
Okay.
And it might be the most surprising one yet.
Okay. You've got me intrigued. Tell me more.
So we're talking about staying focused, right? In this world of endless distractions.
Yeah. Like, how do we actually do that?
Well, Cleon suggests that the key to navigating a world of infinite choices is to embrace limitations.
Limitations, really?
I know it sounds counterintuitive
It does.
because we often think of creativity as breaking free from constraints.
Right. Like, the more freedom, the better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Cleon, along with many other creative thinkers, argues that too much freedom can actually be paralyzing.
Paralyzing. How so?
Well, think about it. When you feel like you can do anything, it becomes overwhelming. Where do you even start?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right. What direction do you choose? It can lead to analysis paralysis and actually stifle creativity.
So it's like having too many options.
Exactly.
It's like standing in front of a buffet with 1,000 different dishes, and you end up overwhelmed and unsure where to begin.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
But when we embrace limitations, whether self-imposed or circumstantial,
Yeah.
it forces us to get resourceful, to focus our energy, and to make deliberate creative decisions.
It's like those cooking shows where chefs have to create a gourmet meal using only a handful of random ingredients.
Yes, and often those limitations result in the most inventive and delicious dishes.
Because they have to think outside the box.
Right. Constraints can spark resourcefulness and ingenuity, leading to unexpected creative breakthroughs.
So how can we apply this principle to our own creative work?
Kleon suggests setting constraints for yourself. Maybe it's limiting your time, like writing a poem during your lunch break.
Okay.
Or maybe it's limiting your materials, like painting a portrait using only one color.
Interesting.
The point is to create boundaries that force you to think differently, to work within a set of parameters and see what emerges.
So it's about discovering freedom within constraints.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It might sound paradoxical, but limitations can actually boost creativity.
I have to admit, that's a real mind shift for me, but I'm starting to see how liberating it could be.
It is liberating because it takes the pressure off of having to be original all the time.
Right. And it allows us to focus on the process, on exploring and experimenting within those boundaries.
Exactly. So we've talked about establishing healthy habits, embracing limitations, finding our creative tribe.
This has been so insightful.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
But there's one last piece of the puzzle we haven't touched on yet.
Okay, what's that?
What does Cleon say about staying true to ourselves?
Ah, the big question.
About finding our unique voice in a world that often pressures us to conform.
That's such an important question. And it's something Kleon addresses beautifully in the final chapters of his book.
Okay.
In a world that's constantly telling us who to be, what to create, it's easy to lose sight of our own unique voice.
It's like we're all trying to squeeze ourselves into these predefined boxes, chasing trends, instead of trusting our own instincts.
And Kleon is very aware of that pressure. And he offers some powerful antidotes.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
He reminds us that the most compelling work comes from a place of authenticity.
Being true to yourself.
Exactly. From tapping into what makes us different, what makes us weird, what makes us...
I'm all about embracing the weird. But how do we actually do that? How do we cultivate that sense of authenticity when there's so much noise vying for our attention?
He argues that it starts with being honest with ourselves about what we truly love, what truly inspires us, what truly sets our souls on fire.
So basically, screw the algorithm, follow your heart.
In a way, yes. It's about tuning out those external voices and listening to that inner compass.
That guides us toward the work that only we can create.
Precisely, Kleon reminds us that the things that make us different are often our greatest strengths.
Even if they sometimes feel like weaknesses.
Exactly. He even suggests that what we choose to leave out of our work is just as important as what we choose to include.
That's interesting. It's like defining ourselves not just by what we embrace, but also by what we choose to reject.
It's about recognizing that creativity is as much about subtraction as it is about addition.
Making conscious choices, being deliberate about crafting our work, and defining our own creative boundaries.
Yes. And trusting that those choices, those limitations, will ultimately lead us to our most authentic and compelling work.
So stealing like an artist isn't just about techniques or strategies.
It's more of a philosophy, a way of approaching life and creativity, with curiosity, generosity, and a willingness to embrace the messy, imperfect beauty of the creative process.
It's about understanding that we're all part of a creative lineage, building upon the work of those who came before us, while also striving to contribute something unique and meaningful to the world.
Beautifully said.
It's about finding joy in making things and connecting with others and in sharing our passions with the world. And ultimately, it's about trusting ourselves.
Trusting our instincts.
And trusting that the world needs what we have to offer, even if it's a little bit different, a little bit weird.
To everyone listening who is on their own creative journey, remember this. Steal from the best, transform it into your own, and share your wonder with the world.
And don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly.
Beautifully said.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Austin Kleon's Steal Like an Artist. We encourage you to check out his book for more inspiration and practical advice. And most importantly, keep creating. The world needs your unique voice.
Until next time,
Yeah.
keep stealing like an artist.
And keep diving deep